There is a flat gray stone somewhere in your house right now. Bottom of a tackle box, back of a workbench drawer, under the fuses and the spare washers, wrapped in a rag that has not been unwrapped since the man who wrapped it was alive. And every time somebody clears out a house in America, that stone goes in the 50-cent box. The knives get looked at. The knives get argued over. Somebody's nephew reads the tang stamp with a phone light. Nobody turns the stone over, which is a shame, because the stone is often older than the knife, scarcer than the knife, and it will tell you more about the household it came out of than the knife ever could. So this is a video about sharpening a knife the way it was taught in this country, in 1965. The picnic table method, the folded paper, the one word that makes the whole thing work without guessing. All of that is here, and it still works. But it is also about the object doing the sharpening, because the stone in that drawer came out of a New Hampshire pasture, or a mountain in Arkansas, or a tidal flat in Indiana that was underwater 300 million years ago. Some of those seams are quiet now. You cannot buy what is already in that drawer, at any price, brand new. And the man who owned it used it every Sunday for 40 years and never once thought of it as anything but a rock. Start with the thing everybody has backward, because the whole method rests on it. A sharp edge is not a thing. It is a meeting. Two ground faces of steel running down to a line so thin your eye will not resolve it. That line is the edge. So a dull knife has not lost steel. It has lost that meeting. Every carrot, every cardboard box, every stick somebody whittled has rolled that line over until the bottom of your blade is not a line at all. It is a tiny rounded curb. You are not cutting with an edge anymore. You are cutting with a very narrow spoon. That is why the tomato folds instead of splitting. And this is the part they hammered hardest at the picnic table, because it sounds backward until you sit with it. The dull knife is the dangerous one. A rounded edge needs real force to make the same cut, and all that stored up force is waiting for the moment the steel skids. A sharp edge bites where you set it and goes where you point it. That was not campfire wisdom. It was written policy. In 1950, a scouter named John Page at Camp Yagug in Rhode Island put together a card called the Toten chip. A boy earned it by proving to his leader that he understood the pocket knife, the axe, and the saw, handling, care, and use. Care. That word is in the requirement. A boy who could not show it did not carry. And here is the detail almost nobody remembers. Scouting did not permit sheath knives in that era. A folding pocket knife was the authorized blade. So the American boy of 1965 was handed a folder and told to keep it sharp himself. Which meant a stone, which meant every hardware store in America had a shelf of them, which is why one is in your drawer. So, let me give you the word. The word is burr. The old-timers called it the wire, and it is the entire method. Rub one face of the blade on a stone long enough, and the steel at the very edge gets thin enough that it folds over to the far side. It hangs there, a curl of metal thinner than a hair, running the length of the edge. You cannot always see it. You can always feel it. Slide your thumb flat down the side of the blade, across the steel and off the edge. Across, never along it. And there is a faint catch, like the ragged lip on torn tin. That wire is the stone telling you this side is finished. The two faces now meet all the way down. Raise the wire on one side, flip the knife, raise it on the other, then chase it off with light alternating strokes. What is left behind is a true edge. No guessing, no eyeballing, no holding it up to the window wondering. The steel tells you. That is the whole secret a 12-year-old learned in one afternoon, and it is why the method survived without an instruction manual. Now, put the knife down. We are going to turn the stone over. Because that gray brick has a maker, a date range, and in some cases a mine that no longer runs. Start with the label, paper, lacquered onto the stone itself, or a printed cardboard sleeve, or a wooden box with a sliding lid. If you see the word Pike, with a fish swimming through the letter P, stop and pay attention. That is one of the oldest continuously used trademarks in American toolmaking. Around 1821, in the foothills of the White Mountains, a New Hampshire settler named Person Noyes picked up a piece of rock and tried it on the edge of his axe. It cut. He went back the following spring, quarried a few pieces, broke them into rough scythe-stone shapes, and the farmers around him liked them. What he had stumbled onto was a deposit of mica schist, and it turned out to be one of the finest in the world. Noyes died. His widow remarried a man named Isaac Pike, and Pike is the one who turned a good rock into an industry. By 1842, he was milling whetstones and shipping them down the Connecticut River. The village around the mill eventually took the family's name, Pike, New Hampshire. 4 generations ran it, and by the 1890s they had bought out most of the competition. So when the tin in your drawer says, "Established 1823, know what you are reading." That is a company anniversary line, struck on the commemorative tins for the centennial. I have not found a document putting Isaac Pike in the whetstone trade that early. The local record shows him quarrying by the early 40s. If a seller tells you his stone is from 1823, he is reading a slogan, not a date code. Now the mountain that replaced the pasture. In the Washita Mountains of Arkansas, around Hot Springs, there is a rock called Novaculite, cryptocrystalline quartz, grains 1 to 5 microns across, dense, hard, translucent on a thin edge. The name is Latin, Novacula, razor stone, and it is not a modern discovery. People were quarrying Novaculite in those mountains back in the Archaic period, thousands of years before Europeans, and trading the worked stone across much of North America. French trappers used it on their knives, because a hide does not come off clean with a dull blade. The earliest accounts of whetstone mining there date to around 1818, and in 1834, a geologist named George William Featherstonhaugh came through Hot Springs and wrote down that the residents were honing their razors on the local stone. A dated, first-hand, printed observation, and it is checkable. The abrasive trade split Novaculite into 2 families, and this is what the labels in your drawer are telling you. Washita is the more porous one, with the dull look of unglazed porcelain. It cuts fast. It was the workhorse. Arkansas is the fine, uniform, waxy-looking one, and it got graded further. Soft, hard, translucent, black. Soft is the everyday stone. Translucent and black are the finishing grades, and they cost the most because every flaw shows. Here is a correction that saves people money at flea markets. Color does not tell you the grade. The same colors turn up across more than one grade. A soft stone can be white, gray, black, or pink and gray. What tells you is feel and density. The soft grades feel coarser under a thumb. True hard and translucent feel glassy. So if a seller has a black stone and calls it surgical black, on that basis alone, he is guessing, possibly honestly, still guessing. And then there is the label that stops the people who know. Lily White Washita. That was Pike's trade name for the whitest, most uniform grade of Washita they pulled out of the ground, and either side of 1900, it was considered the premier bench stone for woodworking edges in this country. It is on the New Hampshire Historical Society's own shelves, cataloged out of a Pike salesman's sample box, with the printed wrapper still on it. And the Washita seams are not being worked. There is stone left in the ground. This is not a story about a mountain running out, but commercial production stopped as synthetics got cheaper, and apart from a brief restart, it has stayed stopped, which means the lily white, in somebody's tackle box, is not being replaced. I want to be careful here, because this is where these videos usually start lying to you. A boxed, labeled lily white, in clean flat condition, is a stone woodworkers and collectors actively hunt, and it trades at a real multiple of a modern synthetic. That is a market observation, not an appraisal, and the only honest number is what a comparable stone sold for, never what somebody is asking. Now the one nobody sees coming. There is a whetstone in this country that turns up more often as a gravestone than as a sharpening stone. In Orange County, Indiana, there is a thinly layered siltstone called Hindostan whetstone, also sold as Hindostan oilstone or orange stone. By the early 1820s, it was being hauled by wagon to the Lost River. floated to the White, the Wabash, the Ohio, and the Mississippi, and down to New Orleans. It was the first mineral industry the state of Indiana ever had. And here is the part that gets people. Between roughly 1820 and 1860, Indiana may have produced more of that stone for grave markers than for sharpening. Those are the oldest commercially produced gravestones found in the state, and geologists have used the stone's own layering to trace them back to the quarries. Because that layering is a calendar. Hindostan is what geologists call a tidal rhythmite. Thick and thin laminae laid down by the daily tides on a coastal flat about 300 million years ago. Each couplet is one day. So a farmer in 1840 put an edge on his scythe by rubbing it against a stack of individual days from the Carboniferous. And 2 counties over, somebody's name was cut into the same rock. The last quarry closed in the 1980s. Find a soft, buff or bluish-white stone with fine, visible banding and an Indiana connection, and you have something genuinely uncommon and almost never identified correctly at an estate sale. Before I give you the method, everything here is written up properly in a free companion guide, the Maker Mark Dating Ladder for American Stones, the grade chart for Arkansas and Washita, how to tell a natural from a synthetic in 4 seconds without a loop, a cleaning procedure that will not wreck a 100-year-old stone, and a 1-page sharpening card for a toolbox lid. Link in the description, code on screen. No charge, no sign-up, no email. It is a PDF. Now, the fastest way to date a stone in your hand. It takes 10 seconds. Read the box. Not the stone, the box. If it says Pike Manufacturing Company, Pike, New Hampshire, that is the independent company, before it was absorbed. In 1932, after years of working together, Norton Company bought Pike. Now watch this, because it is the useful part. A great many American stone boxes from the middle of the century are marked Behr-Manning, Troy, New York, division of Norton Company. Behr-Manning was formed in 1928 from a merger of Herman Behr and Company and the Manning Abrasive Company. Norton bought it in 1931, Norton's very first acquisition, and it kept operating under its own name for decades. Then, effective the 1st of March, 1968, the Behr-Manning name was retired and folded into Norton's corporate identity. So, a box that says Behr-Manning, division of Norton Company, is a box printed inside a window, not before 1931, not after 1968. A real dating bracket, from a documented corporate name change, printed on the packaging people throw away. Somebody's grandfather bought that stone at a hardware counter and set the box on the shelf above the bench. The box outlived him. Now it is the only thing in that house that can tell you what year the shelf was stocked. One more, and then we sharpen. The synthetics, because half the stones in American drawers are not natural at all, and the men selling them often do not know it. In 1891, a chemist named Edward Goodrich Acheson, who had worked for Edison, was heating clay and coke with an electric arc, trying to make artificial diamonds. He got a few hard, shiny crystals stuck to the carbon electrode instead. He thought he had combined carbon with corundum, so he called it Carborundum. He was wrong. It was silicon carbide. The name stuck anyway. He was granted the patent on the 28th of February, 1893. United States Patent 492767. He founded the Carborundum Company and moved production to Niagara Falls for cheap hydroelectric power. In 1926, when the Patent Office assembled an exhibit of the patents that had most influenced the world's progress, Acheson's silicon carbide was in it, alongside the Wright brothers' airplane and Bell's telephone. A gray brick in a fisherman's tackle box. Same exhibit as the airplane. And here is the naming trap that catches everybody. Norton's India Oilstone, the orange-brown one you have absolutely seen, has nothing to do with India. It is aluminum oxide, and India is a trade name. Crystalline is the silicon carbide line, and it cuts faster and rougher. So when a seller tells you the orange stone is an old India stone from India, he has read the word on the side and invented a country. All right, the method. Start to finish. 1. The stone. A combination bench stone, coarse on one face, finer on the other, is everything you need. The box tells you whether it wants oil or water. Follow the box. The liquid floats the ground-off steel, so the stone keeps cutting instead of glazing over. 2. Park it. Damp rag on the table, stone on the rag. A stone that walks around ruins your angle, and the angle is about to become the whole religion. Coarse face up, if the knife is truly dull. Fine face up if it just needs waking. 3. Fold your angle. This is the trick worth the whole video, and it costs a sheet of paper. Take the square corner of a sheet, 90 degrees, fold it in half, 45, fold it again, 22.5. Stand that folded point on the stone, lay the blade against the slope, and your hands now know what right feels like. Throw the paper away and hold the tilt. That is stouter than most factory kitchen edges, which run shallower. Good. A stout edge holds up to rope and firewood. 4. Raise the wire. Blade on the coarse face at your angle, edge facing away, and push it across like you are shaving a whisper-thin layer off the top of the stone, sweeping heel to tip. Light, steady pressure. Let the stone eat. Same side, stroke after stroke. 20, 30, 40. Stop now and again and check the far side with your thumb. Flat on the steel, across and off. The moment you feel that catch running the whole length, that side is done. Not mostly. Done. 5. Flip and match. Same work. Other side, usually quicker. Sweep until the wire folds back the other way. 6. Chase it off. Fine face now. Alternating. One light stroke each side. No more weight than the knife itself. Each pass bends that wire back and forth until it fatigues and lets go. What is behind it is the true edge. 7. Strop it. Plain leather belt, no stitching down the middle, hung from a hook and pulled tight. Lay the blade nearly flat and drag it spine first, backward, away from the direction the edge faces. 10 strokes aside. Spine first is the entire trick. Push a knife edge first down a belt one time, and you will own 2 shorter belts. 8. Prove it. Hold a sheet of paper by one corner and slice into the hanging edge. Dull snags and tears. Sharp goes through quiet, in one long ribbon, more whisper than rip. And do it at a bench on a Sunday evening, with room around your elbows. Not in the dark at a campsite with cold hands. That was the other half of the old lesson, and it was the half about not going to the emergency room. Now the correction I owe you, because this is a channel about old American steel. Everything I just told you applies to a working knife. A user. If the knife came out of an estate box, and you cannot read the tang yet, do not put it on that stone. In collector grading, never sharpened is its own category at the top of the ladder, and there is no way back into it. The rule is not never sharpen. The rule is, find out what it is first. I have a whole video on that arithmetic. And the same logic runs the other way, on the stone. Do not lap a labeled stone flat just because it has a dish worn into it. That dish is 100 years of somebody's Sunday evenings. Do not soak a stone that has never seen oil. Porous naturals like Hindostan will drink it straight through. And do not scrub the paper label off to see the rock better. The label is the identification. The rock underneath is anonymous. Same principle as the knife. Arrest the damage. Do not erase the history. So here is what I would like you to do this weekend. Go find the stone. Not the knife. The stone. The tackle box. The bench drawer. The coffee can of orphaned hardware in the garage. Turn it over. Look for a paper label, even a torn one. Look for a fish swimming through a letter P. Look for the words Washita, Arkansas, Hindostan, India, crystalline. Look for a sleeve or a wooden box with a sliding lid, and read what town is printed on it. And if there is nothing at all, no label, no box, no name, that is an answer too. Plenty of these are anonymous quarry stock, still perfectly good stones, and there is no shame in a good anonymous rock. Then use it. That is the part I care about most. Because a stone does something nothing else in that garage does. A knife wears down. A saw goes dull. A truck rusts. The stone gets slightly hollow, slightly smoother, and then it just keeps going. There are Arkansas stones in working shops today that were quarried before the Wright brothers flew, and they are still cutting. A tool that outlives everything it maintains. That is an unusual thing to own. Somebody's grandfather set that stone on a damp rag on a Sunday evening with the radio on and sharpened every blade in the house. The pocket knife, the paring knife, the hatchet, the pruners. Then wrapped it up and put it back, and did it again the next month. For 30 years. He never once thought he was holding anything but a rock. He was holding a piece of a mountain in Arkansas, or a pasture in New Hampshire, or 300 million individual days off a tidal flat in Indiana, and he was holding the only object in that house that will still be doing its exact job in the year 2050. So go turn it over, read the label, then put an edge on something with it. And tell me in the comments what the label says. The town, the trade name, whatever survived. I read them, and the stones people find in these drawers are usually more interesting than the knives. The knife was the thing everybody looked at. The stone was the thing that kept it alive.